That's like $90.
You can only bring it back.
I would do a whole new one.
Jack, do a new one.
Yeah, just do a whole new one.
I'm gonna put my wife on my All right, guys, like another 90 seconds. Jack's doing our best. We're live. Okay, perfect. As soon as you guys want water before we get started. You want me to grab you a bottle of water? Whitney's got her
Can you
tea.
grab me a sandwich?
Yeah, I'll see if there's one in the fridge.
I want a pickle wedge.
Perfect. Get out of frame here. Okay, guys, thanks everyone for coming out for our second week of Agent Elevation, the CMA training. First off, I want to thank our panelists for being willing to step in, kind of give us their experience. We're going to do a Q&A session with them. We're going to learn from what they believe has helped their business, how they kind of go through the CMA process, and then from there, we'll have a quick little run through at the very end, if I can figure out the tech component there, and they'll show us exactly how they start their CMA process on a subject property that we pull up. So we'll do a quick intro. So we'll start with Whitney and then work down the line, and then we'll move on to the next question. Whitney, how long have you been in real estate, and what's your approach to CMAs? Like how do you feel like they impact your business, whether it's with sellers or with buyers? There's a button on there. You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I need it anyway. That's what I did. But cool. So yes, I'm Whitney. I've been in real estate since 2021, and my approach on CMAs is it's something we really all should master because we use them with every transaction and most of the time with every single client, whether they are buyers or sellers.
Hi, I'm Julie Eckington. I've sold houses since 2020 and been in real estate since 2007 as an appraiser and then an investor, doing remodels and flips for a while. So kind of have my hands in lots of different places. CMAs, I think, is just another tool in our tool belt. That's how I approach it. I don't only use that and just say, well, this is what my CMA says, so here we are. It's just one more tool that I have to help guide the client and the experience. Sometimes I don't even use them, but most of the time I do, and I at least know my own stuff on it.
My name is Felix. I have been in real estate for about 5.5 years now. An agent for coming up on 4. Going along with what Julie said, I just think it is a really big tool, and I'll agree, I don't always use it in appointments either. Sometimes I just don't think it's necessary to bring up. But I think it shows how knowledgeable you are about the neighborhood, and you also learn a lot and know what you can expect on selling a home, or in the future if you're helping somebody buy, what that house is worth, and helping them and using that as a negotiating tool.
Hello, I'm Gabby Schaefer. I hate getting in front of people, so if I am awkward and shaky and weird, it just is what it is. It doesn't matter if it's my kid's kindergarten class, like legit. Anyway, I've been in real estate since 2011, so this will be my 14th year. And CMAs are super important just because you never want to get your client upside down, and setting expectations for sellers so they're realistic. And then not like over-promising, under-delivering.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you guys for your introductions, and your insight. I mean, you guys mostly answered our next question, so I'm gonna kind of shift gears on that one and say, do you believe that it's imperative for buyers to kind of know the CMA, or would you say it's more important for sellers when you're going about your day-to-day transactions based on your current businesses?
Okay. Sorry.
You don't all have to answer,
No.
whoever feels like it's most pertinent.
I think it's good for both of them, and, you know, to touch on what Felix said, what Julie said, I guess what all of us are saying, once you start running them often in certain areas, you already know what to expect in that area for buyers, but you also already know what to expect in those areas for sellers. It's strong for either or, right? You want to come in with the best offer that you can for your clients when they're on the buy side, but you don't want to list too high on the sell side or overpromise under delivery. You want everyone to have a level playing field, and you want to be the master with your tool belt to be able to pull that out and really look knowledgeable with what you're doing.
I think that being on the sales side, it's really interesting, like, don't approach your business, I guess, as like, I'm a buyer's agent right now because I'm working with mostly buyers. Really try to figure out what that sales side looks like, because you will be on both sides of the transaction. So right now I have a listing in Magna, and just as a seller, like this couple that put their offer in, they made the appointment within half an hour of us going live. So were they looking for that house? Yes, they were looking for that house. They toured it immediately. They were like just hounding me the whole time. This agent was just like, we're really gonna make an offer. We're working with the lender. We have this, blah, blah, blah. And there was nothing really that she could negotiate on her side, because she had already shown me all of her cards, right? She had already like laid her hand out and just been like, we want it. Like, what do we have to do? All of this. And so then I had the upper hand on negotiations. So when you are looking at it from that side, you want to be able to protect your buyer from like, oh, this house just went up, but is it overpriced? Maybe there's not a ton of offers on it. Maybe, like, I know this area well enough that the sellers might want this, they might need this, but the realistic number is to come into here. And appraisers are influenced by what our offers look like. And so I think just seeing it from both sides of, yes, we want to get the property, but also we want to protect our buyers and not just be like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for this property, you know? And so I think that knowing those numbers helps us be a little more tempered in our response. I mean, sometimes there's those properties that are amazing, but.
Awesome. No, great.
And using it as leverage.
Yes.
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 So, I mean, CMAs are pretty subjective. Like, I've had an appraisal come in 70,000 low, and then I had a second opinion, and it came in a value. So there can be some really big gaps. Having a willing, able buyer is really a big factor. That's why the purchase price matters so much. But it is important to, because you can kind of include certain comps and exclude certain comps to kind of put it to protect your, whether you're a seller, you're going to pull the high comps, you're a buyer, you're going to pull the lower comps if you're presenting those two like as leverage with your offer, but supporting it, like showing the client that they're not overpaying as well.
That's a great transition into our next piece. So next we're going to jump in with you guys based on your experience how to build like a super strong CMA. And so our first bullet point to ask you guys is, what key factors do you always consider when you're selecting your comps? And I mean, you hit on that briefly there at the end, but what do you guys see?
So I think a lot of us in the room owe Julie a lot, just because she was like, she's been the original trainer on CMAs because she has that appraiser mindset. So that's my first thought when I start CMA is like, how is an appraiser going to look at this? Because you don't want to list a house, it gets an offer, and then it comes in below value, right? So I think that's the most important part is, at the end of the day, unless you're getting a cash offer, you need to look at the home through an eyes of an appraiser.
I wear a WWJD bracelet. But what should we do? Whatever.
No, and that, it's actually interesting. I told Maggie when she asked, when we were looking at the panel and just like let's get some voices from other agents on how they approach it, because how I approach it will be very different. And this will be your real estate career. How Michael finds success in his real estate career is different than how I find success, but there's room for us to find success. So how you run a CMA and how you present that and how you utilize that in your business might be different than how I do it, and that's okay. Like, these approaches should be different, but the thing about it is to find where it fits and start feeling comfortable with houses, with value, feel confident with that. I think that there are a lot of listing agents and buyer's agents, like this one that I was talking about, but listing agents too, that have no idea why they priced the house the way they did. And you'll find that out when you say, hey, so I was looking at comps and I'm sure you know. And then as soon as you say that, they're like, yeah, well, I'll look at that one. But when you say, I'm sure you know that the house that's next door that's been on for 50 days and is nicer than this one, it's not selling. So I'm just wondering where you guys got your value. Well, my sellers wanted to list it here. That's not a CMA, right? Yeah, that's an opinion.
It's a
And
prayer
so,
request.
yes, it's a prayer. And we, as appraisers, we would always say list price is a wish price. And but we have to be educated enough to be able to stand up for our sellers and our clients, buyers and sellers on both sides. Really be educated and know what we're talking about, so that when we get hit with that and they're like, hey, I bet you know that the house next door sold last month, and you're like, crap, I did my filter so much I didn't even see it. You gotta know. And so that's where CMAs for buyers is really important. A lot of times I don't present them to the buyers. I'll just give them a peace of mind of like, hey, I've looked at the comps. Things feel really good in here. I'm confident that the appraisal will come in like this, and the sellers really need to get this out of it. So you're working with different factors and different aspects in that negotiation process.
One thing that I just experienced last week, we were in
sold. So it makes sense that there's 0 comps, okay? It's in a really unique little area right by Fort Union. So you've got the freeway there, you've got all the commercial, and you don't have very many brand new townhomes. I know the builder personally. I know his stuff, and it wouldn't compare to the builds that he does in Holiday. So we kind of talked through all of this so that we could expand with a purpose. And we went back 2 years, and so we looked and we expanded not past State Street. We stayed above State Street so that when she makes this plea to the seller, like they're going in, it's a rental, and she's trying to talk the seller into selling for her buyer. And so she's going to say, these are the things I didn't do. I didn't pull comps on the other side of State Street. I didn't, like, you're not comparing to Holiday, but you are comparing to this little strip along here. And this is where we're falling, and anything above 700 kind of is a lot bigger than yours. And so then she's able to justify that in her negotiations, and it's not even to her buyer, it's for a buyer's agent to negotiate. So it just gives her some more tools. I don't even know if that answered. I don't even know what your question was.
Great.
I just had a thought.
That was a great approach for when there aren't a lot of.
In 2022, you're like, every time you pull a CMA form, you're like, I'm really sorry, didn't play too much, but you had a good interest rate.
Yeah, so.
You're like, every time you pull a CMA form, you're like, I'm really sorry, didn't play too much, but you had a good interest rate.
Yeah, so I definitely.
Not much.
Not much.
I think that's the biggest thing too. I think that's the biggest thing too is make sure you're being reasonable. Like your value isn't going to go up 50 to 100 grand in 2 years or even 3 years. So it's going to be small with stuff like that. I had one yesterday that had 0 comps, and he bought, I think in 2022 for 375, and I have to think to myself, like, did it really go up 50 grand in 2 years? Probably not. So we're in, as much as I hate to tell him it's only gone up, you know, maybe 15, 25,000, that's the reality.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, people in today's market still want that appreciation from the 2020 era when we were 10 to 12% appreciation again. So it's definitely that, right. So that's a segue into the other piece that's coming up is that when we're chatting with the different clientele, whether it's sellers or buyers, we have those CMAs. A seller insists that their property's worth more than what we as professionals can kind of find. How are you guys having those conversations with them to reel them in, or is there a different approach where you're like, you know, Julie, I appreciate you having me in your home today. It seems like you want me to sell your home, but you also don't want me to do it the way that it'll actually get it sold. You want me to list your home, not sell your home. How are you guys approaching that with sellers, whether they're realistic?
I think there's people that are motivated and unmotivated. We had somebody yesterday, a house in Heber, and I was like fighting to get him close to 700. And I told him, I was like, there's not many comps. And I showed him one at 645 and one at 709, and I was like, okay, I think you're somewhere in between here. And they don't really have motivation. And so he was just like, all right, I think I'll start at 800 and we'll just go from there. And I think from there you just, you know, you say, like, we need to get them down before we list it, but it's also, sorry, I lost my train of thought. We have to do the pricing strategy. Like, okay, if we start at 800, we're probably, and he even said that himself. He was like, I want to start higher so we can like go lower. And I was like, okay, that would be, you know, a longer strategy. It's going to take more time. You're going to have to do price cuts and stuff like that. So if that's a strategy you want to go, you don't really have a rush to sell. Yeah, we can do that approach, but let's maybe be a little realistic because you're not going to have a lot of showings at first.
And there's risks associated with listing too high.
Yeah, well, and you start doing those price cuts, and
What's wrong with
it looks
it?
bad because people just wait for the next price cut, or we'll just wait again for the next price cut, things like that. To piggyback off a situation like that, where I know anybody up here would handle it wonderfully. You do also have to be able to talk to your clients in those weird situations like that, right? Like, I think sometimes we get overwhelmed and it's like, cool, I want a listing, or I'm gonna get this listing, and then they're like, I want to start at 800. And you're like, that sounds great, because now I have a listing and I'm good. But those uncomfortable situations and those conversations are what's gonna master and mold you as a great agent, and you're gonna feel more confident to be able to go through those pricing strategies and not look weird. You don't want to list a house at 800 and agents call you and you're like, do you even know what you're doing? And Felix is like, yeah, I've been doing this. I didn't do it. It wasn't me, you know? It
But
wasn't
it
me.
is you, because you do agree to it, and so it does reflect on you a little bit, where
Yeah.
you're just like, hey, because you don't want to throw your clients under the bus, where you're like, hey, they just wanted this, I know it's not worth it, you know it's not worth it. You know, like, it gets you into a sticky situation where you're like, how do I back up this value of, and how I would do that, because I don't like to throw my clients under the bus ever, is I would just say, hey, this is what, like, my clients are in a rush to sell, we know we have time, and if you'd like to make an offer, we'd love to see it. You know, so
They feel it's worth it.
yeah, they feel it's worth it, or whatever it is, where it's, you still have to be able to back it up somehow.
It's always people with solar.
Because they owe $80,000 in solar.
With that question though, I feel like I would love to ask, hear your answer. So when somebody comes to me and they tell me their house is worth $50,000 or $100,000 more, and you were even like 709 is pushing it, like I'm trying to get you there. I would love to hear what you would say. Like, I tend to ask them, like, what do you feel like makes your home worth $800,000, right? They might say solar. They might say, I built this cabinet with my bare hands. And you're like, I can tell, you know? So, like, what in that situation, like,
And she
in
would say that.
I would, like, it looks great, but what would you say? He's like, I want 100,000 more. Were you like, what do you feel like why do you feel like your house is worth 100,000 more than what I'm saying?
I mean, he
Or-
was giving us a good list, and like, I obviously wouldn't list it at 800, but my strategy would be like, okay, when people come into the house, there's gonna be a clear list of all the upgrades, the solar's paid off, this is how much you're paying. Like, I kind of would turn it into more of a marketing strategy, and like, this is why this home is worth this much, right? This is why my client feels like it's listed as worth this much. So I would try and make it so that people feel, that they're getting a little bit more. But yeah, we would definitely have to talk them down. I mean, that one's definitely a nurture.
Yeah.
Like they have to sell this theater in Heber, and so it's going to be a minute. But going on another thought I have, this is a script that I've been using a lot lately, which I really liked, and basically I tell them, it's at the end of the day, it's not our job to tell you what to list for. We're just here to provide, we're professionals, this is what we do. We're here to provide the data, and you get to choose what you're gonna list at. And then I go over the pricing strategies. And the other day, I actually had a client come back and tell me, I said that first, it's your choice. Here's what we can do. Here are the 3 options. What would you like to do? And he came back and he was like, I think I want to do the middle one. And I was like, perfect. So I kind of set him up for success in where it's your choice. I'm not here to tell you what to list your price for. I'm just here to guide you, and then you can choose what you want to do depending on your situation.
You say like motivating, like that's like, the seller's motivation is a huge factor in how they're gonna. So
For
all
sure.
you do is provide the comps, say this is what I can justify. I'm happy to list it wherever you want to, but like we probably should reevaluate after a week and see like if we're not getting showings, we're way out of range. And we need to drop it by a certain percent. But if they're not super motivated and they're like, no, I'm only selling if I can get this amount. I mean, you just say, that's fine, I'm happy to, but just know that this is where I think it will go. And even if you were to get an offer at that price, can an appraiser justify it? And will it come in, or are we gonna have to like come up with those different objections as well? So, and like, appraisers don't account, they only account for finishes by so much, they've been through your house, but like the finishes aren't going to make it.
And they haven't been through the comps.
Even if they've like paid for the lot premium and all these different things with the builder, it's likely not going to
you know, everybody says, my neighbor is selling their house and they're selling it for $1 million. You know, it's been 262 days, but it's sitting there. It's not.
They're not selling.
Yeah. So you have to navigate through that conversation.
So switching gears off of sellers, how are you guys utilizing your CMAs to help justify like your offer prices for your buyers in, say, the competitive market, you know, sub 500, where we're starting to see a little bit more traction, maybe even multiple offers? How are you guys utilizing
I
the
was
CMA
in multiple
to-
offers twice in the last 2 weeks, which I haven't seen in quite a while. And so, really, it's this, if you have to go above list price, buyers want that peace of mind that they're not overpaying. So providing a CMA to just say, hey, I don't want you to be upside down. I don't want you to, because we're repeat referral, we don't want you upside down when we go to sell it.
Right.
So I'm gonna get you into a good situation. Here's the comps. I can justify this. I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I know, same way. Same.
Perfect. Easy one. Okay, awesome. And so have you guys ever had a buyer walk away from a deal that you were trying to put together based in the findings you had on the CMA? Let's say you went into the showing, they liked it, you stepped away, you were like, let me find out what would make the most sense. Sellers want this. Here's what the market's showing. You come back and they're like, yeah, we're just not comfortable based in your professional opinion moving forward with it.
I feel like I shifted to, well, let's offer and just see where it lands. This is where we're at. This is what we can justify. But again, I don't want you upside down because I want to sell it when you're ready to upgrade, and I don't want to do a short sale.
Yeah, I really do, I will harp on this all day, just to be careful, because you never want to base your offer, like a high offer, on expecting the appraisal to come in low, because those appraisers are people and their opinions will be swayed because they have access to the contract. I hate that they have access to the contract. Just come in and give me a number and then let's see what the contract is. But they do have access to the entire contract. So it will sway their opinion if you're offering, like, in multiple offers, and they're like, they'll ask the listing agent, how many offers did you get? It looks like it went under contract really quickly. So did you have a lot of competition? Were there a lot of people fighting for this? Were there a lot of high offers? Were they pretty competitive? Or was this one really high above the other ones? They want to know. So I do think that we have to be careful with our offer prices, but know that probably the appraisal will come in at value most of the time.
Just
It
plan on
probably
that.
will. Yeah, just plan on that.
Yep.
So to give, I've never had somebody not move forward just because of the CMA.
More so on a low appraisal.
Yeah, low appraisal, but just like you said, like, let's try. And if it's more of like, if the sellers aren't
If
willing.
they want to go up, yeah, if they will come down to where you're at based
Yeah,
on.
you
what
can only
yeah.
do so much, because if the sellers are like, no way, we can't take that, then it's like, well, we can offer, and they can still say no, but having an offer in hand is really nice and kind of makes them really think about it. But if they're going to say no, they might just say no. But
And most of the time they'll call you back in 2 weeks when there's a price drop in the house,
Yes.
so.
Yes.
And then you pat yourself on the back like,
yeah.
got it.
Perfect. And I think this next question is super important, being that you guys are some heavy hitters, have great experience with CMAs. What are some of the biggest mistakes you believe that either inexperienced agents or even experienced agents make when preparing and presenting CMAs to clients?
Filtering by zip code.
Yeah.
No?
84109 goes all the way from the top of the code down past State Street. Okay, sorry, don't do your zip code.
Okay.
So, because I called an agent in Highland. This stood out to me because she was an older agent. I'm like, okay, she probably knows her stuff. Like, and I asked her about her valuation, and she's like, well, everything in, I don't even know what the zip code was, 84024 is selling for this, and so that's why we justified it. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me that you used the whole zip code, because the whole zip code was not. I mean, it was like Lehigh and Highland. It was like taking pieces, and this house was in a prime spot in Highland. And so she was doing her sellers a disservice. So don't ever filter by zip code, please.
Also, take a look at your comps closely after you pulled your report, and are the finishes similar to the, are the finishes similar, are the quality, like, I'll go through, I'll pull a CMA, and then I'll go through what I find, and then I'll unselect, and then I'll go back, and then I'll unselect, and then, oh, this one has a half acre, okay, this one, but finishes are really close, so you just have to be fluid and not just cut it, pull it, this is what it is. You have to really look close and analyze it.
Yeah.
A good appraisal is only 3 to 5 listings in my opinion. And if you have sufficient data, I think you need to just get as detailed as you can. Like if there's a neighborhood with a bunch of ramblers and split entries and you have the option of choosing both, but there is enough data, make sure you're filtering down even to just split entries or ramblers or top floor condos versus bottom floor condos, like the edge homes in Saratoga and Lehigh, like you can get very specific on those as well. So just getting as specific as you can if the data is available.
Also with that, like ramblers tend to be more desirable, especially with how many people need main level living. So taking that into consideration, I'm not going to pull a rambler versus a split entry. There's no way. Maybe a multi-level and a split entry, but even then, only if I don't have a lot of data.
I think also look at pictures. Maybe as a new agent, you just rely on CMA or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, it pulled them for me based on data. But go through and actually look at the photo. I don't know what's happening. Go through and look at the photos of the house too. Just
For
like
sure,
that.
at least see the kitchen.
Click.
Yeah,
just go
fast.
fast. If you want the
Kitchen,
backyard, it's
bathrooms.
this way. If you want,
Yeah.
go
Oh,
through.
this one doesn't have a garage. Okay.
Yeah.
And just be reasonable. I mean, don't, if you have this huge gap in numbers, it's not working. So just be reasonable in what you really think the home could sell for or is worth.
Perfect. Yeah. So with your skill set, I mean, you guys do a large number of transactions. So I mean, you're getting your finger on the pulse more frequently than say a super new agent. How are you like improving your skill set and continuously growing with the fluidity of the market so that you're staying competitive? How are we practicing our CMAs as stock producers?
No, I would say not to get lazy on just being like, well, I know this. Like really see if something has changed since the last time you looked at it. Make sure that you're like really taking advantage of the information that's there. Like I love that Michael is 11 times a day, he looks at his MLS. He just knows his area so well that if anything lists, it's not a surprise to him. So not to get lazy on that is probably my best piece of advice. I like to look at our job, and especially CMAs, as less like a math problem. I graduated in engineering and I like numbers. So I'm very analytical, and I have to remind myself that this is not a math problem. It is not 1 + 1 = 2. This is an art form. It is 1 plus flower plus view plus kitchen equals 1.2. And so then you're like, okay, how do I get there? How are we moving through this? It can't just be, well, this is what the CMA says. There's so many different factors to take into account and really become good at making a masterpiece, and refining that skill and becoming a better artist through it is so important, where you have to practice. If you don't practice asking questions, again, like role plays are kind of hard, but take like your relationships and refine how you ask questions, refine how you talk to people, how you listen to people, refine those kinds of things, and then your skill set is continually improving on that.
And taking advantage of the team. Like if I'm pulling comps in Davis County, I know who built what, where everything is. I grew up there. That is my specialty. If I'm listing a house in Daybreak, I'm probably going to call Chris. if I'm in here, I don't even know the streets in this area. I'm probably just referred. You know what I mean? Like just knowing.
She doesn't even go here.
I don't even go here. But just utilizing the team with all of the strengths. There's so much talent here and perspective.
No, and Marmalade, this guy's Marmalade, he'll tell you everything about Marmalade, so refer it to him.
I'm like, is that a jam? I don't know.
Is that a trend? If you want toast.
Perfect. So in that last piece, I mean, you gave us a great piece of advice there at the end, Gabby. I'm going to ask each of you, what piece of advice would you give to a new agent who's looking to do CMAs? Like, what is your number one rule to a new agent who's really working on this, trying to hone in their skills and be a better presenter of the CMA to a buyer or a seller?
I mean, oh no, I need the mic. I mean, just as they're saying, practice from preparing it, from your email, how you're gonna talk about it, from presenting it in front of a mirror to your kids, to your dog, to your friends, to your family. Ask people if they have listings coming up that they've ran CMAs on, that you can also run a CMA on to compare. If you're coming out $300,000-$400,000 different than a seasoned agent on your CMA that you ran, you need to do better. Also, one thing, and I'm sure they all do it, but again with Cloud CMA, I know you can easily put your information in there and it pulls for you. I would hands down never trust Cloud CMA where I'm pulling all of my stuff first, going through them, and sometimes Cloud CMA will line those up, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes I have to add one, sometimes I have to make it out or take it out. So just be confident with yourself, but have others check or run them with somebody else to compare. Like before you go present to somebody you don't know and you are stressed or look kind of goofy because you haven't practiced it. I mean, what does Chris always say? You're not going to play a sports game and just show up. The Chiefs did not just show up day one and decide they want to be in the Super Bowl. They
had to get the reps.
right? Oh shoot! You guys be nice. My girl's booze on that team. She's going to invite me one day. But, so yeah, that's just my piece of advice. Practice makes perfect.
Even when you're a seasoned agent, like I had Trevor call me the other day and I was like, hey, can you just look at the CMA and make sure I'm not missing anything? Or like, where would you have listed it at? 100%. Like I'm coming in and he wouldn't even tell me what he came in at. He just said, I just need a double set of eyes on it.
Yeah.
The most satisfying thing is having somebody do a CMA for you and you come up with the same price.
Yeah.
Because you know you're doing something right. I had a listing that I lost out on, but I was really confident about the CMA. I lost because it was one of their friends that undercut me, not because of anything else probably. But I ended up looking it up after it sold. They listed it for $500. I advised them like $470 to $490, I think, and it sold right in the middle. So that was really satisfying. So I mean, take it as an opportunity with social media posts. Hey, I'm giving out free values. Like just do them as much as you can. And even, I'm probably doing 2 to 3 CMAs a week. If you ever need an address to do a CMA on, just hit me up and I would be happy to share an address with you and we can collaborate and make sure I'm doing things right and you can see what I'm doing as well.
I would say my biggest piece of advice is to make yourself familiar with the MLS. Like feel really, really comfortable with the MLS. Okay? Know how to, like when you're pulling showings, like how you're mapping them and how you're showing them in the order that you're showing them in and how you're, like all of those things, just feel comfortable with the MLS. Use it every single day. Be on there every day. And if it's running a CMA in an area that you want to sell or that you have clients that are buying in, or like, I don't like the word expert because I don't feel like we can become an expert, but I do think that we can be very knowledgeable in what we're presenting and we can help give our clients peace of mind. And so, like, really start learning by doing. Just be on the MLS every day. So,
And like, look at it kind of itemized, like a house that's zoned commercial or residential, that holds value. Things that like we just maybe wouldn't have normally looked at.
yep.
Perfect, awesome. I'd like to ask the team to kind of thank you guys, maybe give you a round of applause for taking time for us. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to help us learn, and I'm sure you guys will be fielding more questions from us in the future.
Tanya had a really good question to me
Perfect.
this morning.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask it, or do you want me to ask it for you?
Is there a legal officer here?
I don't
I
know.
don't see any of them.
Okay, maybe we need to ask it at a team meeting.
Yeah.
She was just asking about concessions, how they're like kind of dig into that a little bit.
So concessions are highly debated in appraising right now. It's changing and it'll be good to like keep an eye on what's happening, but I was curious what like Cole was seeing at Intercap, like are they adjusting dollar for dollar? The verbiage on the Fannie Mae selling guide has changed and it's caused a lot of confusion in the appraisal industry. It kind of give contradicting statements in there, so.
So that's one to think about and to look at, but I do think that it's really important to keep up on what the appraising world is, like the whole closet thing, I didn't know.
Dollar, and
Yeah.
it's no longer
Like it
that.
doesn't have to have a closet.
Yeah, like now it doesn't have to have a closet,
closet.
and I didn't know when it
I
changed, but it
didn't know
changed,
that
but
either.
now, yeah, so
Yeah.
now I know it.
But
It's
it
really
also,
big
like, I
difference.
feel like it's an appraiser-based thing. Some
Right.
old school appraisers or something may still think that. So it definitely depends on who you get. So I wouldn't go tell your clients, doesn't matter if you have a closet right now, it's still a bedroom. You could say, you know, it's changed, but we could try this, but we may see some
Yeah.
pushback, but we can go through that. Sorry, Felix.
Well, thank you guys. We're,
Oh, wait, David has a question.
yes.
With a lot of new agents and stuff in here, when you guys get on the MLS in the morning and you guys are looking at the market, what's your process? And what do you guys go through? I'm sure you kind of have your own areas, your own like specifics, but like for someone like me where I'm kind of shooting all over the valley, looking at different people, like what do you guys do? I know it's a broad
I
question.
sometimes will just go back one day, go back 3 days, even if it's been like a weekend, and see what's new, what's happening, what's gone under contract, how it's moving.
Yeah, I do Michael's approach because I like it. It's analytical and I like just getting some numbers really quick for myself. So I go all over the valley too, but I have areas that I really focus on, and so I have my map already set out, and I just do my active under contracts, backups, and solds, and I just see what happened there, what else is coming on. If there are clients that I'm working with, a few that are like, hey, we're not in a rush, but we're very specific about what we're looking for, I will pull up their, first thing in the morning, I pull up their alert, and I see if anything else has come up on that alert that I need to be aware of. So that's what
The biggest question right now is what kind of market are we in, right? How quickly are these people's homes going to sell? Are they selling close to list price? So if you zoom in on the neighborhood, you can see the days on market and then look at what it listed for and give that as far as sellers go, give that expectation to them. With my past listings and when I look at a neighborhood lately, I'm pretty confident to tell them, hey, based off the data, I mean, you're looking at 30 to 40 days on market. And so I know that because I've looked on the MLS multiple times. So thinking about what the current market is and then asking your questions and going to the MLS through that because of that question.
Especially if you have like a subject to the sell clause, and you better know what that's gonna look like before they can move forward.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's a really good question.
Terrific.
Yeah, great question.
I just know there's a lot of people have different ways they go about it, so just be interesting.
Yeah.
Hear perspective.
There's so many outside factors at play.
Yeah, I usually am like pretty client focused when I jump on the MLS in the morning.
I'm the same way. I go through all my alerts. I used to set up MLS for alerts 2 hours before my lofty alerts, so that I would get the MLS alerts at like 5 a.m. and then my lofty alerts go out at 7 a.m. so that I could see before they could see, so that I could jump on and get
Oh, that's a good
information. But now I have so many gosh darn alerts every day.
Now you have 15,000 unanswered emails.
So now I just do the lofty, but I definitely go through and see what's been listed, or even price reductions, you know, because it alerts you for that too. And then I go on per client, like based on how gung ho and ready they are to see what else is going on in that area. And then I don't know if we said list price versus sale price, check concessions on the past sales in those areas to see like where we're sitting at and what we can negotiate as well.
Yeah, think of things that are good, just knowledge pieces that you can give to a client. Like yesterday, I thought it was really important to list off how many active homes there were. Because a big question right now is, well, a big thing that clients are saying is, oh, I'm just gonna wait till the spring. And in my opinion, I think that there's a really healthy inventory right now, and if everybody has the same mindset of listing in the spring, what's going to happen? So is it really beneficial to list in the spring if you're going to have a bunch more competition? So that's my opinion. Who knows what will happen, but I'm telling clients, this is the amount of homes, this is what happens if it gets to 11,000 in the spring. Do you want to list right now when it's a little bit lower, or higher when it's in the spring?
Well, when's the
Yeah.
spring?
Yeah. That and
Depends on the groundhog. We'll figure that out. Okay.
It's never been snowy.
The
But yeah.
spring is not April.
Yeah.
But
And how
also-
good do you look though saying we have 7,000 or slightly under 7,000, we're above 9,000 right now, like you're providing those numbers that you can quickly and easily see that triggers in analytical minds or other people's, like, oh, that's even more. It takes 2 seconds and you already look like you're on your way to being an expert.
Yeah, even if it goes right over their head, you set the data and
Yeah.
they'll love you.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Julie and I were talking earlier today about like outside factors, like how are the fires in California going to spill over into our market? Are we going to have a lot more competition in the spring? The sellers that sell in the winter typically have an outside motivating factor. You can usually get a deal. I feel like it's not just numbers. There's lots of different factors at play when discussing what's right timing-wise.
The timing is always right when your client's timing is right, right? It's never spring, winter, summer, bleh, bleh. It's when it's right for them. There's no point in waiting if you don't need to wait. It's probably the right.
Perfect. Yeah, whatever feels right for you. Thank you guys for your time. We're going to wrap up.
Say goodbye.
Got 9 minutes to take Title 101. You guys.